Mark, welcome. You just returned from Fort Polk, Louisiana, where you saw the Army testing a new network. Tell me a little bit about that exercise.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Daniel. So this was an event sort of 3 years in the making as the Army is charting down its network modernization. They were there with the 1st Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division testing their integrated tactical network, specifically what's called Capability Set 21. This is a combination of radios, hardened waveforms, and hardened cell phone technology that will allow soldiers to be able to communicate much faster and over greater distances. Military leaders have said in the multi-domain battlefield of the future, forces will need to be able to communicate over greater distances, much more dispersed, and have to move very quickly against a very sophisticated threat. They'll also need technologies that will be able to be resilient towards jamming and be able to have multiple paths of communication in case one is jammed by the enemy.
And what's the Army's network capability right now?
So in 2018, under a series of reviews, the Army determined that its network was not hardened or survivable against a near-peer competitor. So under these modernization efforts, they've sought to essentially create a more hardened and resilient network. Leaders have discussed that this modernized network allows for multiple paths of communication. They have 2-channel radios now that allow much more options for soldiers to communicate in the field. If one means of communication is jammed, they have other options as opposed to previously where they may have had much fewer options which prevented communication. This also allows soldiers to be able to establish their networks much more quickly. They're able to move a lot faster now, whereas the previous iterations of the technology were much more static and didn't necessarily allow those forces to communicate and move as quickly as they needed to against the threats that forces believe that they would be facing.
Tell me a little bit about the range they're working with.
Sure. So one battalion commander that we spoke to said that using SATCOM capability that wasn't always as available as it is now, they were able to speak about 45 kilometers away, which previously they weren't necessarily able to do. And additionally, on top of that range extension now, the communications are crystal clear. They're not garbled. So that was some of the positive feedback that we heard from some of the folks at Fort Polk was they were able to communicate much farther and the communications quality was much better, meaning that they were able to hear and understand orders and chatter much easier.
So when will these improvements end up in soldiers' hands?
So in a manner of speaking, some already have actually. Portions of this technology have been fielded to the Army Security Force Assistance Brigades. One of the battalions within the 82nd Airborne Division has been testing this technology for a few years and actually deployed with it to Kuwait last year. But in terms of full-scale brigades, the Army is expecting to field 4 infantry brigade combat teams in 2021 with this Capability Set 21 technology. So this was sort of the last chance for the Army leaders to receive critical feedback to make final tweaks before they begin fielding brigades next year.
Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.